Many of the recent protests here in Lexington have referenced the area called Cheapside in downtown Lexington. It's next to the old courthouse where the Fifth Third Bank Pavilion currently stands. Now, before the Civil War, Cheapside was the center of slave trade in Kentucky and was one of the most well-known in the South. Evening Edition's Claire Kopsky takes us back more than a century up to now, when some are calling for a name change.
When downtown Lexington was built, so too was Cheapside, a place that originated as a marketplace.
People would gather in the public square to trade horses, to swap knives, to do community commerce.
Historian and Lexington History Museum President Foster Ackerman explains the first half of the name cheap comes from the Old Saxon definition of to sell, and the whole name came from across the pond.
Well, the name preceded. The name Cheapside comes from a large market area in London, England. And so when the trustees of Lexington established our market here, they named it after London's market. And so the name had nothing to do with slavery. It just happened to be the location.
Around 1833 or 1834, when the cholera epidemic killed about 600 Lexingtonians, many were forced to sell some of their property as their breadwinners had died from the disease. At that time, property meant farms, horses, homes, and slaves.
Part of the ugly history of Cheapside is that it was also a center for buying and selling slaves. There were at least 4 slave brokers in buildings around the courthouse. Cheapside got its reputation as a slave market because of court-ordered sales to settle estates or in foreclosures. Farms were auctioned at the courthouse steps, horses were auctioned, and slaves were auctioned.
It took a civil war, the Emancipation Proclamation, and more years before the slave trade ended in downtown Lexington. But the pain is still felt by Lexingtonians today, and some are calling for the name to be changed.
For us, it's just inextricably linked, the name Cheapside, with some of the actions that happen in that space. And if the young people are saying that this is what we feel we need to do in order to push this forward, then that's necessary, and we of course support those folks.
Russell Allen of Take Back Cheapside, a community activist group, says since 2015 they've been working to make the Cheapside area more inclusive.
The whole space there is just part of our 3-point plan. So our first was to, of course, remove the statues. The second was, of course, to bring the plaque back, which is now on the other side of the street, which kind of lets everybody know that Cheapside was a slave auction block. But the third point was a larger arcing point, and it's not necessarily a point that we specifically would have to enact, which is just making Cheapside more safe and inclusive for everyone.
When planning events in that space moving forward, Allen hopes community leaders will keep one question in mind.
Is this something we should be doing in the space of a former slave auction block? And I think if we thought from that space, that would help our city kind of turn and change the tenor of events and the type of things that they do down there in kind of the spirit of honoring that legacy. Of those basically those enslaved folks that were sold there.
In Lexington, Claire Kopsky, LEX 18 News.